All right, today we're going to talk about something huge, the architecture of global power. We're diving into a source that really breaks down this multi-layered system, the one that lets a single nation project its influence across the entire planet. So, you have to ask the big question, right? How does one country actually rule the world? It's not just about one thing. The source says it's this incredibly complex system with all these different layers of control. So, let's unpack that system layer by layer and see exactly how it's supposed to work. Now, according to the source, this system didn't just happen by accident. Oh no, it was a strategic blueprint, mostly put together right after World War II. A time when one nation really had the cash and the vision to build the institutions that would go on to shape the rest of the century. And the first layer, the absolute bedrock of this whole thing, is control over the world's money. It's like controlling the financial plumbing of the planet. Because think about it. If you control how the money flows, you can influence pretty much any nation on Earth. So, how does this work in practice? Well, the source claims it's incredibly direct. As you can see here, if a country needs a long-term loan from the World Bank or, say, a short-term bailout from the IMF, they have to get U.S. approval. Why? Because the U.S. has the most voting power in both institutions. The source argues that gives it just enormous leverage. And it's not just about big loans. It's about every single international transaction. The source points to the SWIFT system as the ultimate gatekeeper for global payments. If a country gets kicked off SWIFT, like Russia was, its ability to trade with the rest of the world is just crippled. It's basically like yanking a country off the financial internet. Okay, moving up to layer 2, the digital empire. Because in our world, in the 21st century, power isn't just about money anymore, is it? It's digital. And that influence extends to the very tools and infrastructure we all use every single day. I mean, just think about your own day. When you look something up, you probably use Google. Your computer? It's likely running on Windows or Mac OS. And your phone is almost certainly on Android or iOS. The source presents these American tech giants not just as companies, but as key instruments of this massive digital empire. This quote from the source just says it all, doesn't it? We use America's Google to find our own streets. Wow. That really shows you just how deep this digital integration goes. I mean, that level of reliance on another country's infrastructure is something we've never really seen before in history. So here's the really crucial point. All this online activity, it generates data, tons of it. And the source explains that this data, what we like, what we buy, how we think, it becomes this massive strategic asset. It gives you this incredible window into global populations, which of course can then be used to shape opinions and influence what people do. But what happens when controlling the money and the data isn't quite enough? Well, that's when the source brings us to the third, and let's be honest, the most physical layer of power, the military. This is presented as the ultimate backstop, the final enforcer, built on just overwhelming technological superiority. The source breaks down a modern air campaign into this really clear sequence. And get this, the very first step isn't to drop bombs. No, the first step is to take away the enemy's eyes and ears. It's all about making them completely blind to what's about to happen. And the main tool for that job is this, the EA-18G Growler. Now, this isn't your typical fighter jet. Its whole purpose, as the source describes it, is electronic warfare. It's designed to fly in first, jam all the enemy radar, and basically make their air defense systems totally useless before the main attack wave even shows up. I absolutely love this analogy from the source. To get what radar jamming is, just imagine your phone suddenly getting 1,000 wrong number calls all at once. You'd never find the one important call in all that noise, right? Well, that's what the Growler does to a radar system. It just floods it with so much static and false information that it's completely overwhelmed. Okay, so once the enemy is blind, the bombers come in, and the source highlights 3 main types. First, you've got the B-2 Spirit, the stealth bomber. Nearly invisible to radar, delivers its payload with surgical precision. Then there's the B-1 Lancer, a supersonic bomber that gets in and out super fast. And of course, the iconic B-52, the heavy lifter capable of carpet bombing an entire area. And just to wrap your head around the B-2's power, look at this number, 14,000 kilograms. That is the bomb capacity of a single B-2 Spirit. The source notes that's heavier than a large truck, all delivered by one aircraft that the enemy literally cannot see coming. It's just incredible. After the bombers do their work, the fighters swoop in to clean up and take total control of the sky. The source points to 2 main stealth fighters, the F-22 Raptor, which is designed purely for air-to-air dogfighting, and the F-35, the multi-role jet that can kind of do it all. And you'll notice both carry their weapons inside to keep that all-important stealthy profile. So when you see all of this overwhelming technological power, it leads to a pretty logical question. How could anyone possibly fight back against that? Well, this final section of our explainer looks at the rise of what are called asymmetric strategies and what that means for the future of conflict. This slide just paints such a clear picture. On one side, you have a fighter jet that costs hundreds of millions of dollars. On the other, a drone that costs about 20 grand and runs on an engine that the source compares to one from a moped. This isn't about trying to match technology anymore. It's about completely changing the rules of the game. And that brings us to this key concept, asymmetric warfare. The source frames Iran's drone program as a textbook example. You can't build a better stealth fighter, so you don't even try. Instead, you build thousands of cheap, effective drones to overwhelm a defense system that's way more advanced, but also way more expensive. So, at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway from the source material? It argues that the only real defense against this multi-layered web of influence is to build your own. Everything from your own financial systems and social media, all the way to your own defense technology. The path to real sovereignty and the 21st century, it seems, is technological independence. And that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. In a world that's more connected than ever, where technology is creating both new links and new battlegrounds, what is the architecture of global power going to look like tomorrow? It's a fascinating question, and one we'll definitely keep exploring. Thanks for joining me.